In 1979, a satellite detected a nuclear blast no nation ever claimed. In 2015, a CERN camera lost 0.7 seconds, and one researcher vanished from every record. In 1901, a device was pulled from the Aegean Sea that should not exist for another 2,400 years. These events are not folklore. They are catalogued, time-stamped, and, in most cases, immediately classified. They suggest a disturbing possibility, that human history has been reset, rewritten, or rebooted more than once. And each time, fragments remain. Artifacts, lights, people. The mistake wasn't in discovering them. The mistake was in letting them surface. Because if even one of these events is true, then the story of humanity is not what we think it is. It's something else entirely. And we may be running out of time to remember who we were before it happens again. History is written by the victors, but more often it's rewritten by the survivors. And sometimes it's erased by design. From the ancient sands of Anatolia to the cold void above the South Atlantic, there are moments that don't fit, discoveries that shouldn't exist, signals that shouldn't have been heard. These are not rumors. They are not theories spun in basements or message boards. They come from military archives, peer-reviewed journals, and forgotten logbooks buried in institutional silence. This is a dossier of 10 events. Each one, taken alone, raises eyebrows. Together, they redefine what it means to be human. You will hear of explorers who emerged from nowhere and disappeared just as fast. Of machines built before metallurgy was supposedly born. Of events detected in real time and then deleted from every official record. The question isn't if they happened. The question is why no one talks about them. There's a name for this kind of silence. Controlled forgetfulness. The systemic removal of facts too disruptive to accept. Not because they're dangerous in themselves, but because of what they imply. If humans discovered electricity thousands of years earlier than textbooks say, if space knew our name before we left the planet, if time isn't a straight line but a corridor already walked, then we are not at the beginning. We are a rerun, and reruns always end the same way. This is not about conspiracy. It's about pattern. Across centuries and continents, the same story reappears with different actors, different tools, but identical fingerprints. The suppression, the vanishing, the warning. 10 stories. 10 cracks in the illusion of progress. 10 moments when the curtain nearly lifted, and someone pulled it back down. We begin with a machine so advanced it shouldn't exist. Yet it was real, recovered, and scanned by modern instruments. And it's still spinning in silence. In 1901, sponge divers searching for sea sponges off the coast of Antarctica, a Greek island lost between Crete and the Peloponnese, stumbled upon a Roman-era shipwreck 150 feet below the surface. Among amphorae, statues, and coins, they recovered what looked like a corroded lump of bronze fused with wood. It was catalogued, shelved, and ignored for nearly half a century. In 1959, physicist Derek de Solla Price examined it more closely. Under layers of oxidation and marine sediment, he detected gear teeth, dozens of them, cut with such precision that it rivaled 18th century clockwork. Later, X-ray tomography would reveal the impossible. A mechanical analog computer, built in the 1st century BCE, capable of predicting planetary positions, eclipses, and even the dates of the ancient Olympic Games. This was not a simple device. It contained over 30 interlocking bronze gears, some with tooth counts matching astronomical cycles known only to modern science. The level of miniaturization, axles thinner than toothpicks, gears perfectly meshed. was centuries ahead of its time. According to conventional historical timelines, no civilization should have possessed the engineering knowledge to produce something like this until at least the 1400s. And yet, it existed. The anomaly raised immediate questions. Who built it? Why was it lost at sea? And perhaps more urgently, why are there no other examples? Price's reports were met with fascination, then skepticism, then silence. Academic institutions treated it as a singular curiosity, a relic with no lineage, no descendants. The narrative was sealed, a brilliant but isolated invention, an accident of genius. But scattered in obscure museum basements across the Mediterranean, fragments with similar gear imprints have quietly surfaced, misclassified as decorative ornaments or incomplete sundials. In 1976, Jacques Cousteau revisited the Antikythera site. His team found no new machines, but did note signs of earlier excavation. Tools, disturbed sediment layers, and a single lead weight far newer than the wreck itself. Who had been there before? And more importantly, what did they remove? The Antikythera mechanism remains locked in a glass case in Athens. Its replicas sit in universities and observatories. But no modern historian can explain why no workshop, blueprint, or companion device has ever been found. It stands alone, technologically orphaned, narratively inconvenient. But it was only the beginning. Just 2 oceans away, another anomaly was being charted by a man who claimed he copied it from ancient sources. In 1513, Ottoman Admiral Piri Reis compiled a world map on a strip of gazelle skin parchment. Drawn with ink and annotated in Ottoman Turkish, it was never meant to rewrite the boundaries of history. But it did. Rediscovered in the Topkapi Palace Library in 1929, the Piri Reis map shows the western coasts of Africa and Europe, the eastern coast of South America, and something else. A landmass at the southern edge, jagged, unfamiliar, unlabeled. It resembles the coast of Queen Maud Land, Antarctica. But there's a problem. Antarctica wasn't officially discovered until 1820, over 300 years later. And the coastline shown on the map isn't just correct in outline. It matches the subglacial topography of Antarctica beneath the ice. This accuracy was confirmed in 1960 by U.S. Air Force cartographer Captain Arlington Mallory. Using seismic surveys from the International Geophysical Year, he compared the map's contours with modern data from ground-penetrating radar. His conclusion: the Piri Reis map depicted Antarctica as it would have looked at least 6,000 years ago, before it was buried under 2 miles of ice. How could a 16th century admiral possess knowledge of terrain only revealed in the 20th century? 1. One note on the map reads, "These lands were copied from ancient maps." Another, "Some charts used were from the time of Alexander the Great." But if these source maps existed, where are they now? Scholars who challenged the timeline were silenced, their proposals rejected by peer-reviewed journals for lacking sufficient academic context. Mallory was branded a pseudoscientist. His military work was quietly declassified. Funding for further investigation vanished. Meanwhile, a 1953 internal report from the U.S. Hydrographic Office, long ignored, stated plainly, "This map challenges the accepted historical timeline and the development of cartography. Its accuracy cannot be dismissed." No museum has admitted possession of the older charts Piri Reis referenced. None are catalogued in known archives. And no comprehensive search for them has ever been launched. In 2009, satellite surveys detected a magnetic anomaly in the same region of Queen Maud Land. a team of geophysicists proposed a meteor impact. The expedition was funded, then suddenly canceled. No findings were released. If someone knew the shape of the continent before the ice, they likely knew more than just geography. And they weren't guessing. But as one empire fell, another civilization was already harnessing something else: power. Real, usable electricity, long before Tesla was born. In 1938, Wilhelm König, an Austrian archaeologist working at the National Museum of Iraq, uncovered a clay jar during an excavation near Kujut Rabu, just outside modern-day Baghdad. Inside were a copper cylinder, a rolled iron rod, and traces of an acidic substance, likely vinegar or wine. On its own, the artifact resembled little more than ancient debris. But König made a radical proposal. This object was a galvanic cell, an electric battery, dating back to between 250 BCE and 224 CE. He wasn't guessing. The copper and iron formed a basic voltaic reaction. The acidic liquid would have acted as an electrolyte. Replicas created in modern laboratories produced a steady current of 0.5 volts. It was primitive, but it worked. König's theory shattered assumptions. Electricity had supposedly been discovered by the West in the 18th century. Yet here was a device that predated Alessandro Volta by nearly 2,000 years. Mainstream archaeologists resisted. The prevailing consensus argued it was used for storing sacred scrolls or held ritualistic meaning. No wires, no lamps, no context for electricity. But context did emerge. In 1962, archaeologist Arne Eggebrecht conducted experiments using similar replicas to electroplate small silver objects with gold. The results were undeniable. The process worked. That raised a darker implication. The Baghdad battery may have been part of a larger, lost technology, used not for discovery, but for deception. In museum records from the early 20th century, 2 other similar artifacts were documented, but their locations are now unknown. No photographs exist. No catalog numbers remain. They were last listed during the British Mandate period. Some believe they were removed during World War II. One note, handwritten in German on a crumbling museum ledger, simply reads, "Drei gefunden, nur einer darf bleiben." 3 found, only 1 may remain. Whether part of a forgotten experiment, a trade secret, or something much larger, the Baghdad battery suggests that knowledge of electrical current, however crude, once existed in antiquity, but it vanished. No workshops were found, no written manuals, no successors to its design, only a single jar that still conducts. And if electricity wasn't discovered, but rediscovered, then what else have we lost and misnamed? The answer may lie beneath layers of stone, encoded in spiral grooves that should not exist, etched by hands that claimed they came from the stars. In 1938, a Chinese archaeological expedition, led by Professor Chipu Te, ventured into the remote Bayanhar Mountains near the border of Tibet and Qinghai. They were searching for evidence of ancient settlements in the isolated caves of the region. What they found instead were 716 circular stone discs, each measuring about 9 inches across and 3/4 of an inch thick. At the center of each disc was a precise hole. Etched into the surface, barely visible to the naked eye, were fine spirals of microscopic characters, tightly wound from the edge inward like the grooves of a vinyl record. They became known as the Dropa stones. Initial attempts to decipher the inscriptions failed. The symbols did not match any known Chinese script, ancient or modern. But in 1962, Dr. Tsum Nui, working at the Beijing Academy for Ancient Studies, claimed to have cracked the code. According to his translation, the stones told a story. a spacecraft had crash-landed in the region over 12,000 years ago. Its occupants, thin, fragile beings called the Dropa, sought refuge among the local tribes. They were feared at first, but eventually accepted. Many died. Some survived. The discs were said to be their record. The reaction from the academic establishment was immediate and hostile. Dr. Tsum Umnui was allegedly forced to resign. His papers were pulled from publication. No official copies remain. In the years that followed, the stones were removed from display at the Bampo Museum. The caves were declared off-limits for preservation. The stones themselves were reportedly transferred. Destination unknown. But reports persist. In 1974, Austrian engineer Ernst Wegerer visited the museum and claimed to have photographed 2 of the discs. He described them as slightly radioactive. His photographs were published once, then quietly disappeared. He later reported that his negatives were stolen during a break-in. No arrests were made. The Chinese government denies the stones ever existed. Still, rumors of a Dropa lineage circulate among Tibetan tribes in the region, referring to a pale-skinned, narrow-framed people who arrived from the clouds in forgotten time. No physical Dropa have ever been found, no spacecraft, no verifiable source for the symbols. But the caves remain. So do the photographs, and a single record of Dr. Sum's final statement before exile. The symbols speak of mourning, not conquest. They came to escape, not to rule. If that is true, then something out there once fled to Earth. And we were not the only ones watching the skies. But what if the intrusion came from below, not above? And what emerged was not alien, but impossible. In the 12th century, during the reign of King Stephen, the quiet village of Woolpit in Suffolk, England, became the site of a story so strange, it entered 2 separate chronicles of the time. According to the accounts of Ralph of Coggeshall and William of Newburgh, harvesters discovered 2 children near a wolf trap just outside the village. A boy and a girl. Their skin was green, their language incomprehensible, their clothes made of unfamiliar material. They appeared frightened, confused, and utterly out of place. The villagers took them in. At first, the children refused all food. They cried constantly. Only when offered raw, broad beans did they eat. Eventually, they began to adapt. The green hue of their skin faded, but only the girl survived. She learned English. And her story, recorded by monks, defied all known geography. She claimed they came from a place called St. Martin's Land, a world perpetually in twilight, separated from ours by a vast river. She said they had been herding cattle when they heard a loud sound and found themselves in the field near the wolf pit. Skeptics have tried to explain the tale as a fable or local myth. Theories range from chlorosis, a form of malnutrition, to Flemish refugees fleeing persecution. But the core details remain curiously consistent. The strange speech, the dietary aversion, the transition from green to pale, and above all, her account of another world. In the 1990s, British researchers conducted a geophysical survey of the area surrounding Woolpit. Deep beneath the village, they detected minor but persistent radiation readings. Low-level, non-lethal, and without clear source. No uranium deposits, no military dumping, just a faint, constant pulse. Nothing was built there. No construction, no excavation. The project was quietly archived. In 2002, a local historian found a sealed wooden crate in the archives of a nearby abbey. Inside, 13th century correspondence between monks discussing whether the girl should be turned over to the bishop or left in place. She had, according to one note, foreseen things not yet come. No further letters followed. No grave marked her death. No name was preserved. The skeptics remain. One sober counterpoint still stands. Anomalous children appear in myths worldwide. Perhaps this was nothing more than another story. But the records are real. The village exists. And something unexplained walked out of the earth that year. Woolpit was only a hamlet. But hundreds of years later, another quiet location would spark global panic. Not from green children, but from a nuclear bomb that never exploded. In the late 1950s, during the height of Cold War tension, the United States Air Force quietly authorized a classified study with one objective: detonate a nuclear weapon on the surface of the moon. The program was known as Project A119. The public would not hear of it until 2000, when declassified documents confirmed that the plan existed and that it was dead serious. Conducted under the auspices of the Air Force Special Weapons Center at Kirtland Air Force Base in New Mexico, Project A119 had several stated goals. Officially, it was a demonstration of technological superiority, a space-age fireworks show to boost American morale and intimidate the Soviet Union after Sputnik. But internal memos told a different story. The weapon would be launched via an intercontinental ballistic missile, timed to detonate at lunar sunrise so the flash could be observed from Earth. But the choice of location, a specific region near the moon's terminator line, raised questions among later analysts. The area is geologically stable, seismically dead. Why test there? Among the scientists recruited for the project was a young Carl Sagan. His task: to model the dust and radiation dispersal pattern of the explosion. But according to a 1959 draft, partially redacted, the detonation had a second objective: to test resonant structural response. Put simply, the U.S. military wanted to know if the moon would ring. The idea was not entirely fictional. Later Apollo missions confirmed that lunar impacts caused deep seismic reverberations, suggesting the moon's core may be hollow or at least structurally unique. Project A119 was canceled in 1959. Officially, it was deemed too risky for public relations. But the classified files went further. Inconclusive risk assessment regarding lunar integrity. Further testing advised, under alternate protocols. Those protocols remain unknown. The Soviet Union reportedly considered a similar plan, Project E4, but no documentation has been verified. Both sides seem to abandon the idea at the same moment. Some believe the plan was a bluff. Others, that the explosion did occur, unreported, on the far side of the moon, during a classified phase of early satellite deployment. In 1971, a French observatory recorded an unexplained flash on the moon's far side, triangulated to Mare Moscoviense. No known meteor activity occurred that night. NASA offered no statement. Carl Sagan never publicly spoke of Project A119. When asked in a 1985 interview whether detonating a nuclear weapon in space had ever been considered, he paused, then said, "There are things I wish had stayed on paper." And from here, the story changes tone. Because everything so far could be dismissed, barely, as errors of record or ambition. But from here on, the pattern stops asking for permission. It starts showing up, in front of thousands, with no intention of hiding. March 13th, 97. Just after 7:55 p.m., thousands of residents across Arizona began calling local authorities to report the same thing. A formation of massive, silent lights, gliding low over the state. Witnesses from Prescott Valley to Tucson described a V-shaped object, as wide as a mile, moving slowly across the night sky. For nearly 3 hours, the lights moved from north to south, visible to cities, suburbs, and entire stretches of desert. The object made no sound. It hovered at times. And then, with no acceleration, it disappeared into the dark. The United States Air Force offered an official explanation within days. Military flares dropped during a training exercise at the Barry M. Goldwater Range. But this didn't match the evidence. Multiple videos were taken. Civilian and police radio transmissions confirm reports of the lights well before the time of the military exercise. Amateur astronomers tracked the object's trajectory. It blocked out stars. It flew too slowly to be conventional aircraft and never broke apart as flares would. Even Arizona Governor Fife Symington, a former Air Force officer, initially downplayed the event. But in 2007, he reversed course. He stated, "I'm a pilot, and I know just about every machine that flies." This was bigger than anything I've ever seen. It wasn't flares. It wasn't anything from here. No radar data was released. The FAA stated it had no anomaly on record. Yet local control towers recorded blips that night. Temporary, erratic, and gone within minutes. And then there's the blackout. In the months that followed, over 17 hours of civilian video footage was voluntarily submitted to local news stations and never returned. One technician at a Phoenix affiliate claimed that FBI agents arrived 2 days later, requesting raw tapes for verification. No formal investigation was announced. No congressional hearing followed. One video that did survive, captured by a local teenager, shows a distinct boomerang-shaped structure. Engineers from McDonnell Douglas privately reviewed the footage and, off record, claimed it showed no known propulsion system. One analyst added, "This isn't ours." What was seen in the skies over Phoenix that night was not a fleeting light. It was a craft. It made no sound. It made no sense. And it never returned. Or did it? Because one facility in Europe, years later, may have picked up the echo. A disruption in the fabric of time, and the disappearance of one man who may have walked through it. In October 2015, the CERN research facility in Geneva conducted a high-energy particle collision at the Large Hadron Collider. The experiment was part of a scheduled series intended to replicate early universe conditions. The collision reached 13 tera-electron volts. Then, a record. Nothing seemed abnormal at first, until footage from Corridor 7C was reviewed. In the video, a physicist, name redacted from all post-incident reports, is seen walking toward a containment substation. Mid-stride, the image skips. Not like a glitch, like a splice. Security logs show that 0.72 seconds of footage is missing, across all angles, all time codes. Every system, redundant, analog, and digital, experienced the same gap. And the man? Never seen again. At first, administrators blamed a systems malfunction, but an internal incident report, later leaked, includes a statement from one technician. He was there, then he wasn't. Not walked away, not fell, just cut out. The physicist's name was removed from CERN's personnel database. His office was cleared within 24 hours. No forwarding address, no family claims. His published work, retracted or reassigned. The official narrative labeled it employee reassignment during facility reorganization. But archived seminar videos contain gaps. Panels where he once spoke show empty chairs. Even collaborative papers list anonymous contributor in place of his name. The disappearance was not just physical, it was systemic. Then came the timecode anomaly. During the precise moment of the collision, a global atomic time server registered a 0.72-second desynchronization across 3 redundant locations: Geneva, Frankfurt, and Canberra. The anomaly was brief uniform, and without precedent. It was later dismissed as clock drift. But in a restricted log labeled Phase D, Convergence Threshold, someone had written by hand, "Subject lost in fold, not dead, displaced." The note was unsigned. Later, whistleblowers hinted that the experiment had unintentionally created a non-zero dimensional corridor, a theoretical space where time is not fixed, but fluid. One former engineer stated that the magnetic resonance levels exceeded safe containment thresholds by 4.2%. The detectors recorded a spike resembling gravitational lensing, except it originated from within the collider ring. All external data related to the experiment was purged. The corridor, 7C, was sealed. No further experiments have been conducted in that wing since 2016. CERN refuses to comment. The physicist's name triggers no results in any affiliated scientific institution worldwide. But rumors remain. A man in Zurich claiming to have woken up in a hotel room with no memory of arrival. A thumb drive found in the Jura Mountains containing design schematics not yet published. A personal journal retrieved from the Rhone River, soaked, bearing the initials of the vanished scientist. And one final entry. "I don't think I came back to the same version." And if he was displaced, then what returned may not have been the same. But the signal, that came first. On September 22, 1979, at exactly 53 GMT, a U.S. satellite in high Earth orbit, Vela 6911, registered a double flash over the South Atlantic near the Prince Edward Islands. The signal was unmistakable. The double flash is the signature of a nuclear detonation in the upper atmosphere. Vela satellites were designed specifically to detect nuclear tests, and this one had seen dozens. The system flagged the event instantly. Intelligence analysts confirmed it. For 12 hours, military readiness across multiple continents silently escalated to DEFCON 3. But no nation ever claimed responsibility. And when the press caught wind, the official line changed. NASA called it a zodiacal light reflection, a solar glitch. An investigative panel, led by physicist Jack Rowena, later concluded the data was inconclusive. But the raw telemetry, declassified decades later, shows that Vela's optical sensors recorded a sharp initial pulse followed by a longer secondary burst, perfectly consistent with a kiloton-range nuclear airburst. Australian weather stations in Perth also detected ionospheric disturbance, matching the time and location. Even a hydroacoustic station in the Indian Ocean reported an unusual signal, never explained. And yet, no radiation was found. No debris, no evidence of missile trails. Nothing. The incident became known as the South Atlantic Flash, officially unexplained. Unofficially, it became something else. An internal NSA memo from October 1979, leaked in 1997, includes a redacted transcript from a radio transmission intercepted at 00:54 GMT, 1 minute after the flash. It was not in any known language. The memo included 3 words, translated phonetically: return, verified, passage. The NSA claimed the transcript was a hoax. But further review of the Vela's system showed that, for exactly 17 seconds after the flash, it stopped transmitting encrypted packets. Not failed, not offline. Paused, almost as if listening. Years later, FOIA requests revealed fragments of a canceled Department of Energy study titled Project Nocturne, investigating extraterrestrial energy events near the Antarctic Circle. It was funded from 1977 to 1980. Every report from the project was destroyed in a fire at Fort Meade. The only surviving record, a requisition form requesting materials for Signal Origin Triangulation, Deep Sky Sector 49F. One detail in the Vela's logs went unnoticed for decades. The second flash was brighter than the first. That should not happen in a nuclear event, unless the second flash wasn't the bomb. But the reply. For those tracking these events across timelines, this marked the shift from containment to contact. Because only 2 decades later, deep beneath stone, in a land older than any nation, humanity would come face to face with a sealed chamber, one unopened since 9000 BCE, and one that, according to thermal scans, was not empty. In the arid hills of southeastern Turkey, a site predating Stonehenge by over 6,000 years began excavation in 1995. Göbekli Tepe. Carved stone pillars arranged in concentric circles. No signs of agriculture, no pottery, no burial chambers. Just monolithic architecture, aligned with celestial bodies, built by a people the textbooks claim should not have existed. For years, archaeologists unearthed T-shaped megaliths adorned with carvings of foxes, vultures, and abstract symbols. The stones were deliberately buried under tons of earth, as if to protect them or hide them. The site dates back to 9600 BCE, shattering the established timeline of civilization. Then in 2021, ground-penetrating radar revealed something else. Beneath the deepest ring of pillars lay a void, an unbroken chamber, 20 feet below the known floor. Oval in shape, perfectly symmetrical. Never opened, never disturbed. Thermal scans showed cold spots, inconsistent with empty space. Something was inside. A dig was scheduled. The team received additional funding, but 3 weeks before excavation, the project was halted. The Turkish Ministry of Culture cited structural instability. Equipment was removed. No one returned. Dr. Harun Çelik, lead archaeologist on site, resigned without explanation. In a rare interview 6 months later, he said, "We found more than we expected, and less than we feared." He declined to elaborate. A document leaked from the University of Istanbul detailed a preliminary analysis of sonar imaging. It described cylindrical objects arranged in a radial pattern around a central point. Another line, redacted in the final version, was captured in a draft revision. Heat patterns suggest a pulse cycle, still active. The implication was immediate. Whatever was inside had not remained inert. Not entirely. In 2023, a private satellite flyover, commissioned by a European aerospace firm, accidentally captured high-frequency EM interference centered exactly over Göbekli Tepe. The signal lasted 2.1 seconds. It was dismissed as atmospheric distortion. But 2 weeks later, seismometers across the region recorded a low-frequency tremor. Magnitude 1.2. Depth 20 feet. Epicenter directly beneath the sealed chamber. To date, the chamber has not been opened. Requests from multiple international research teams have been denied. The site remains under armed guard, monitored 24/7. And then there is Dr. Çelik's final remark, uttered not in a press conference, but caught on a hot mic after a university symposium in Ankara. "They were warning us," he said, "not to dig, not yet." Whether Göbekli Tepe was a temple, a machine, or a tomb remains unknown. But if time is a loop, if existence runs on cycles, then this site may not be a beginning. It may be a reset switch, waiting for the next cycle. And if these 10 stories share anything, it is this. Humanity has touched something it doesn't understand, and something has always touched back. 10 events, 10 cracks in the glass of known history. 10 moments where the world could have changed, but didn't. The Antikythera mechanism was not rebuilt. The Dropa stones were never translated again. Göbekli Tepe remained sealed. Signals came, people disappeared. Time glitched. And the official response was always the same: deny, redact, delay. But the pattern remains. Too precise to dismiss, too consistent to forget. If even one of these stories holds a fraction of truth, then our collective timeline may be a narrative, curated, corrected, and continually edited. We are told humanity began 10,000 years ago. But what if it restarted 10,000 years ago? What if civilization is not a ladder, but a spiral, and we are the fourth or fifth attempt, oblivious, repeating the same climb? Skeptics argue that anomalies are expected in any system as complex as history, that outliers don't prove conspiracy, only chaos. That belief in lost timelines is a kind of romantic delusion. Maybe. But there's a difference between noise and signal, and this many signals point somewhere. The question isn't what happened. It's why are we not allowed to remember it? So now we ask, if something came before us, where did it go? If something made contact, what did it say? If time folds, when will it fold again? Maybe the final secret isn't buried in the past, but already scripted into the next cycle. And maybe, just maybe, you weren't supposed to hear any of this, but you did. What if that matters? This video is created for analysis and storytelling. Sources are public. Approach extraordinary claims with healthy skepticism.